Sup, guys? It's Toad back with you. As always, it is Saturday. The first Saturday of March Madness. We're now down to the round of 32, so I'll talk about those games, obviously. We got a Saturday NHL card as usual, and or NHL slate, but also a card. I got two college basketball plays, two NHL plays, and one NBA play, a small NBA card. There is also NIT college basketball, but I'm not gonna do anything with that today with those two games. And Major League Baseball is coming up soon, man, in like less than a week, so I will be diving into that as well. Baseball, I mean, it's been my second best sport in the long run. I think over the whole period of time I've been doing this, NBA is number one, baseball, MLB is number two, and actually I think NHL is number three. So we got to get back on track with the NHL. Did win the NHL play last night. Nice segue. Pittsburgh Penguins with the win, even though they got outshot. I think some of it was because they were losing. Or, excuse me, some of it was because they were winning the game. So who was their opponent? I don't even remember who I played against. Columbus, right? Yeah, so Columbus was having to fire a lot of shots because they were behind, but that's just what they do anyway. Pittsburgh won the game. They were winning pretty much the whole game. Got that win. College basketball just continues to suck this year, man. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm now 2-4 in the tournament, but it's like I feel like some of these games I should have won. I feel like I should have won UC San Diego the other day with the reffing calls just ruining that game. And even at the end of that, if you buy into it, Golden stepped over the free throw line, which should have been a lane violation on the shooter, although they never called that, but that would have erased one of his free throws, so then we would have had a 2-point game instead of a 3-point game. But then, of course, maybe it would have gone into overtime if UC San Diego hit a 2. You never know, but still, those foul calls in that game were just awful. Fouling out multiple of UC San Diego's seniors and one with like 7 minutes left. Whatever. The games yesterday started off nice with Colorado State with a nice win. Memphis sucks. And then St. Mary's fell into way too much of a hole, man. And so did North Carolina. So both of those were kind of similar just in that both those teams had to make huge comebacks. And St. Mary's, they're a defensive team, a slow team. So when they fall way behind like that, you don't really expect that they're going to come back. They came back and they had to just tease me with that, man. They came back. I got them right in my bracket at least, but they came back and won by 3, and I needed them to cover a 4. I had -4 in that one. It's just brutal. I mean, just lose the game. Like, you know, like don't even make it that close. Don't tease me. And then North Carolina really teased me as well, as they were down probably 20 points in that game, maybe more, and they came all the way back and cut it to 2 in the final, like, minute or 2 of the game, and I'm like, holy shit, that might actually do this. Nope, it was not to be. They fell out again, and now this is, I think, since the play-in round has expanded to the teams playing into like 11, 12 seeds, whatever, I think only one other year has it happened where neither of those teams advanced through the first round, and now this is the second time it's happened. I thought North Carolina was going to be that team. I mean, it wasn't going to be Xavier. Illinois pretty much controlled that game, so I got that one right, but what can you do? Charles, what's up, man? Good morning as well. And then we had, what was the other play that I had in college basketball? It was another loser, obviously. What the hell? Oh, Grand Canyon. They got absolutely smoked. That was a terrible play. Maryland totally dominated. Maryland, really good team. I do have Maryland in the Sweet 16 in my bracket. And I do have Illinois, so that was one of my, just in my chalky or small pool bracket, that was one of my kind of outliers. So I thought Illinois against Kentucky was going to wind up being sort of a coin flip there, and I'm just like, let's advance the 6th seed, especially because they're playing in Milwaukee, so at least they got it done yesterday, and they will be playing to have a chance to win that game. Same with BYU today. I decided to advance them, which I'll talk about in a second. So I got Pittsburgh Penguins right. NBA looked like I should have gotten them both right. Minnesota T-Wolves, no sweat at all. Easy blowout win from them. And then the Memphis Grizzlies, I did find a +7 on that. And they were winning the game outright. I think in the third quarter, they had the outright lead. And then I look a little while later, and they're down like 20 points. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Memphis Grizzlies completely fall apart. But if you look at the statistics in that game, it was absolute bullshit, dude. Memphis had 95 field goal attempts to, who were they playing against? I always forget which team I fade. It was Memphis against the Clippers, right? Memphis had 98 field goal attempts. The Clippers had 95, and the Clippers had 78. So Memphis had 17 additional field goal attempts. That means Memphis had a bunch of additional possessions, and they still lost the game by double digits. That doesn't make any sense at all. And then when you look at it, the Clippers shot 57-something% from the field, 50% from three, and they went to the line 30-something times. They had like double the amount of free throw attempts that Memphis did. Total bullshit. Seems like some biased reffing there. I mean, if you outpossess somebody like that and you have 17 extra field goal attempts, not only should you not just cover as a 7-point underdog, you should probably win that game outright. And instead they lose by double digits. That's some fucking bullshit. Yeah, I mean, Duke, Mount St. Mary's, I mean, there was nothing interesting about that game at all. Mount St. Mary's, one of the worst teams in the tournament. It will start getting more difficult for Duke, but probably not until at least the Sweet 16 round. Let's talk about the games today. We'll go in order of how these games are. First game up is McNeese at Purdue, or not at Purdue, against Purdue in Providence, Rhode Island. So these teams, this is the second round, so these teams are staying in the same venue that they were at in the first game. Obviously, McNeese getting some hype after that upset win over Clemson. Clemson plays slow. McNeese plays slow, so they had the ability to stay within that game. They actually had a big lead, and they almost blew the game, so I don't know if that's a great sign or not. It doesn't mean that it was a more dominant win than what the final score indicated, but it does mean that they could like potentially just have some issues, like getting a little bit overconfident. Who knows? Purdue also is a slow-paced team, though, so that does bode well for McNeese if you do like McNeese to cover this one. What doesn't bode well, there's a lot of hype around them now. And of course, their equipment manager there, or not equipment manager, team manager, Amir Khan, who's the guy that puts the boombox around his neck and goes out, leads the team out and raps with them, and the cheerleaders have his face on their socks. He's a celebrity now. Everybody's taking pictures of him. So people are liking this McNeese team. And I mean, they are a pretty experienced team now that they're in their second straight tournament, with basically all the guys that were in last year's tournament returning, even though they got bombed in the first round of last year's tournament. That was against a fast-paced Gonzaga team. So these slow-paced teams going to have more difficulty against them. Purdue didn't look that great in the first round, although that might bode well for Purdue in this game, because sometimes you want to look for a favorite that didn't really look great in the first game. And High Point lost one of their better players to injury during that game as well, I think in the first half, so that kind of helped Purdue a little bit too. But Purdue likes to play slow without Zach Edey in there anymore. They don't defend the interior that well. McNeese doesn't really take a lot of threes, even though I think they took a bunch of them against Clemson. That's not really their game. They're more of an athletic team. They play more on the inside, and Purdue, not great at defending that, really. Purdue is more of a guard team now, but they do have the experienced guard play. They are the more efficient shooting team. So it's going to be kind of an interesting matchup. Purdue's a 6.5-point favorite. 52% of tickets on them. 56% of the cash coming in on McNeese. I do have Purdue in the Sweet 16 in my bracket, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if McNeese covered or even won this game. Just they do have the experience here, and sometimes that like consistency of just having what's the word I'm looking for? Continuity of having all those players still there on that team, that can do you well in the tournament. But it is a quick turnaround time, though. So you want to look for these games in this quick turnaround time on the second game of the tournament and in the Elite Eight round. You tend to want to give the edge to the better coach. Which both of these coaches are good. They both have tournament experience, Matt Painter and Will Wade. Matt Painter obviously has been very inconsistent in the tournament, and his Purdue teams have lost to inferior teams fairly often. So obviously it could potentially happen again. I would probably lean to grabbing the points with McNeese, to be honest, just because I think it might be a lower scoring game. Slow-paced teams, but Purdue is the more efficient offense and does have the better guard play and experienced guard play. McNeese is going to be the better team on the interior. So interesting matchup. Arkansas against St. John's. I don't know if the committee is rigging this or what, but you've got to think the committee wanted the matchup of the Italians, Rick Pitino against John Calipari, which I believe is also the old Kentucky rivalry matchup between Louisville with Rick Pitino back in the day, and Kentucky with John Calipari. That was the big rivalry there. So it almost seems rigged. The committee wanted this, even though Kansas was the favorite against Arkansas. Arkansas beat Kansas in a mild upset in the first round. St. John's came out of the gate really slow against Omaha and then turned it on and completely ran away with it in the second half. St. John's, obviously a very good team. In that game, St. John's took a lot of threes because Omaha was like playing a weird defense, so they were putting like almost all of their players in the interior and just giving up the three, basically. And St. John's hit a decent amount of them, even though that really isn't their game. I don't know if Arkansas is going to do that to them. Arkansas, definitely a little bit better with a couple of those key players that were injured during the season coming back, like Boogie Fland, who came off the bench in the game against Kansas. And I don't know if they're going to try to reinsert him into the starting lineup or just go with what worked in the first game and have him play off the bench. That might be better for them chemistry-wise. We'll see. St. John's is down from 10-7 here. So money is coming in on Arkansas. 58% of tickets, 51% of the cash. I'm kind of just going to wind up agreeing with some of the market indicators on these in a lot of cases. I probably agree with taking the points with Arkansas here. Again, I mean, St. John's, they could struggle offensively at times, man. They looked really good in the second half with that final score being just a monster blowout. St. John's a pretty popular team this year. I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas was able to give them a game here. Arkansas is kind of one of those gritty teams, and they are from the SEC, so they played more difficult competition. So they are definitely battle-tested. So that's kind of the way that I would lean in that game. And again, on the quick turnaround time, I mean, the coaching aspect of this, I think, is fairly even as well, as you have two, like, pretty much legendary coaches in this game. They're both with new teams this year, so there's no real continuity from season to season going on with them. But they are both very good coaches. So that's the way I would lean. Creighton and Auburn, this is going to be the first game that I have here, and might be able to get a better number on this. I'm going to lay it with Auburn. I do, of course, in my bracket, I do have St. John's beating Kansas in that game, and I do have Auburn beating Louisville in this game. I think Auburn might be getting a little bit overlooked here, man. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. I apologize. Here's my screen. You can see these games that I just talked about: McNeese, Purdue, Arkansas, St. John's, for a little bit of a visual. I mean, pregame.com is where I go to look at this. It was the old site where I used to listen to a bunch of handicappers there, and they all moved over to Wager Talk, which has way better content. But this odd screen is still the best free one that is out there, in my opinion. Auburn sitting down actually from a 9.5-point favorite to an 8.5-point favorite. They do have 55% of the cash coming in on them, 57% of tickets on Creighton. So Creighton is looking like a bit of a public underdog here, and that's not really what you want. Creighton looked really good in that first game, beating Louisville, pulling off an upset in front of a Louisville-centric crowd in Lexington, which that's going to be interesting too, because the Louisville fans probably are having to sell their tickets now because they probably don't want to be there for this next game if they bought tickets to this game. So maybe the Auburn fans are going to be in better numbers than Creighton. Probably yes, because Creighton is in Omaha, Nebraska. So maybe the crowd aspect of it will be a little bit in favor of Auburn, but Auburn didn't play that well in the first game, man. I mean, they started out really slow against Alabama State, and I think Alabama State started out nicely because they did have that play-in game under their belt already, and they're only going from Dayton to Louisville, or Lexington, I think. Yeah, Lexington, which is not that much of a travel spot. So these games are in Lexington, Kentucky. Those first games I talked about are in Providence, which, by the way, St. John's does have a bit of crowd edge there in Providence, so I will still point that out, that St. John's is the closest of those teams geographically. So yeah, Creighton, Auburn here. What else was I going to say about this? I forget what else I was even going to say, but Auburn, Alabama State didn't have to travel that much, and having that one game under your belt in the playing games, that kind of helps you a little bit to start out in the next game a lot of times. And I think Auburn just kind of started slow again, but they turned it on, and now I think Auburn just kind of has a little bit of momentum coming into this game, while also they didn't look very impressive in the first game. They didn't cover the number. I think they won by 20 in the end there. Not a very impressive win. So Creighton getting the numbers right now. People are not impressed with Auburn. They finished the season losing 3 of 4, but as I kept saying, it was to 3 good SEC teams. Creighton, they're in the weaker conference. They're a pretty good team, and yeah, they do have tournament experience. Some of the guys that have been there the last few years are not there anymore. This is a weaker Creighton team than in the past. They do have a good coach. McDermott, although Auburn also has a good coach, and Bruce Pearl. Pretty much, I would probably put him close to legendary status there. So I think Pearl probably gets the coaching edge here on the quick turnaround. On the quick turnaround, you have the better team as an anti-public favorite coming off kind of a lackluster performance against a team that really played well. And a lot of people saw that Creighton win because that was the first game of the slate, and Creighton made it look easy. They made it look really good against Louisville there. So Creighton is getting the public action. I don't agree with that. Obviously, I have Auburn as my champion, so we'll see how that turns out. But Auburn is still one of the top teams in the country, man. They're certainly a step up in class from Louisville. So this may be where Creighton's run comes to an end. It's been a nice run for Creighton as they've won games in the tournament, I think 4 or 5 years in a row now. But I do think that this year's run will come to an end here. UCLA and Tennessee. This is an interesting game as well. Tennessee up from 4.5 to 5. Not a huge spread here. 73% tickets, only 72% of the cash, though. I don't necessarily disagree with taking the points with UCLA here. I mean, people like Tennessee. I mean, they've been a good team, one of the top teams in college basketball for the last couple of years. They do have Rick Barnes, and we're not looking at trying to get to the Final Four yet here. So Rick Barnes, I mean, obviously his thing is that he never gets to the Final Four. He did get to the Elite Eight last year with a lot of these same players with this Tennessee team. They are the better team, but you can see from the total down from 135 to 130.5 that this is probably going to be a low-scoring game. You got two teams that play really, really slow in UCLA and Tennessee. They both like to play defense. Tennessee especially can go cold from the field a lot. Their offense really does struggle at times, which may help UCLA here. I mean, UCLA, both teams had a pretty easy win in the first round. I think Tennessee's was not really that impressive over Wofford. But still, UCLA, nobody's really going to care that they beat Utah State. I care because I want to bet on it on UCLA. And UCLA did, that final score really did look like quite a blowout. I think Utah State didn't even get to 50, I think. So we'll see what happens, but I think as far as the side is concerned, it's difficult to gauge. I do have Tennessee getting to the Elite Eight in my bracket, which who knows? I just put them there because I didn't think they were going to face that much competition going through it. But UCLA is definitely not a pushover. They can make this game close. They can. They play Tennessee's slow pace with them, or they will probably do that because that's what both teams like to do. But as far as the total, you've lost too much value on the total. I like the under in this game, but 69% of tickets on the over, 54% of the cash on the under. I agree with the under, maybe a slight lean to taking the points with UCLA as well, but the total being all the way down almost 5 points from where it opened, I think you've really lost any value. You could get on the under there. In a quick turnaround time, the legs can get a little bit tired, man, so I would worry about that a little bit on the quick turnaround there. And as far as the coach is concerned, I actually probably would give Rick Barnes the edge over Mick Cronin. I just don't like Cronin, just bashing his players and whatever. Then we have in Wichita, Kansas, the extremely underseeded 8 seed in Gonzaga coming off just absolutely annihilating Georgia, which I thought Gonzaga was going to win that game fairly easily. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a team in the top 10 in Ken Palm's analytics given an 8 seed in the tournament. And basically that screws Houston over because they have to face a top 10 team in the second round here. So that's why Houston's only a 5-point favorite. This is a dangerous matchup for Houston. So like I said, if you're in these bigger bracket pools and you wanted to flip the switch on this one and go with Gonzaga here, I wouldn't hate that. And I kind of think that the winner of this game has a pretty good shot to be the Final Four representative out of this Midwest region here. Hopefully for my sake, it's Houston because I have them in the championship game. But this is going to be a difficult one, man. This is going to be one of Houston's most difficult games of the tournament. And it's just insane that it happens in the second round. The committee, everybody on it should be fired. The whole committee should be investigated. I know West Virginia's governor is suing them for the North Carolina decision. Although I actually think North Carolina analytically didn't necessarily deserve to be left out. I mean, they have better analytics than some of the bubble teams that got in. Houston's a 5-point favorite, up to 5 with juice, but 70% of tickets, only 60% of the cash. So it looks like the cash percentage, the market read is actually on Gonzaga. I'm not sure I agree with that one, though. The Cash on the total is coming in on the under, actually, with 71% of tickets on the over, 54% of cash on the under. This is a game where it's a contrast of styles. Houston likes to play really slow. Gonzaga likes to speed the game up. So it's like whichever one of those paces wins out, probably it's correlated to which team is going to win and probably cover this game. So if you like the low-scoring game, it's probably going to favor Houston. If you like it to be a higher-scoring game, probably it's going to favor Gonzaga. Usually in a game like this, though, I do think the lower scoring team does have the advantage. Like the slower paced team does have the advantage on the quick turnaround time. Houston is still the better of the two teams, and they have the ability to slow it down. It's easier to slow it down than to speed it up. Gonzaga did just play a slow paced team in Georgia, but Georgia is obviously not Houston. I mean, Georgia does not score as well as Houston. Houston this year, this rendition of Houston is a more efficient scoring team than what we've seen out of other Houston teams. They don't take a lot of threes, although neither does Gonzaga, although Houston actually hits a good percentage of their threes this year. Neither of these teams actually take a lot of threes, although Gonzaga did take a bunch of them against Georgia. But that's not really Gonzaga's game, and if Houston is going to kind of do what Georgia did, and although why would you want to do what Georgia did? But if Houston does similar things and forces Gonzaga to play on the perimeter, I don't know if Gonzaga is going to hit like almost 50% of their threes again, man. You might not see them doing that. Houston obviously is way better at defending. I mean, they're just the better team all around. So with Houston, you are getting the better defense, and I know I always like to look towards the better defense, towards the slow down team, but I worry about Houston in this game, man. It is in Wichita, so it's a little bit of a better location for Houston, although it's not that close to Houston, really. So Houston kind of got screwed as far as the venue is concerned as well, though it's nowhere close to Gonzaga, but Gonzaga does have fans throughout the country, although Houston has a good fan base as well. Gonzaga probably does have the coaching edge with Mark Few. I mean, he's been there for so long. He is basically a legend status, I would say, legendary coach. I think he's probably the better coach, although Kelvin Sampson, very good coach, and has turned this Houston program into a juggernaut as well, and has been there for a few years now. Houston, I don't know if they got Juwan Roberts back. He was their one of their most experienced players who got injured towards the end of the season. I don't know if he played or if they started working him in against SIU Edwardsville, who only got 40 points in that game. So that team total under, baby, went way under. On the SIU Edwardsville, they went way under the 48 or whatever it was there. So sometimes with these 116 matchups, the best way to look is you're looking at, Houston has a really good defense, play their opponent to go under their team total and root against them scoring. Anyway, I don't have a whole lot else to say about this, but yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe I slightly lean to Houston here, but I don't love it at all. I really worry about it. Next up is one of my other plays. I'm going to fade a public underdog here as well, which I think they're a public underdog at least. I'm going to go on Texas Tech here. Drake does have 56% of tickets and 60% of the cash, so I do worry that more of the cash is coming in on them. Texas Tech is down from 8 to 7, but I think that Drake is overhyped, man. Like, basically everybody's saying, Drake is that 11 seed that's going to make a run this year, and they could. I mean, they do have a lot of continuity. That was the thing. Like, I wasn't sure how Drake was going to do in the tournament because they have a new coach this year, an entirely new like roster pretty much. They all came up from this Division II team that was like Northwest Missouri State or something like that. Very excellent Division II team. But I think because these players are so used to playing with each other and they've played with each other for a bunch of years in a row, that gives them a lot of continuity. So yeah, this Drake team does have a lot of experience, and now they got their first tournament game out of the way. So all of that is a decent advantage to Drake, but I just think the Drake train, I think they're overhyped, man. I'm not sure they're going to be able to pull off 2 straight upsets of like 6.5 or more points here. And Texas Tech is not Missouri. Missouri, kind of overrated this year, in my opinion, and they play fast. So Drake was able to slow them way down. Missouri gets very uncomfortable playing the slow style. Texas Tech does not. Texas Tech does play slow as well. Not as slow as Drake, but they won't be as uncomfortable playing in a slow-paced game. And whereas Drake looked awesome in their first game, blowing out Missouri, this is one of the angles I like to look at, where what happened in the first round. If you have this underdog that looked really good in pulling off that upset, and they're like the hype train right now, and everybody wants them, and the team they're up against almost lost as a huge favorite, and that's basically where Texas Tech is. Texas Tech was not impressive against UNC Wilmington. UNC Wilmington, not a bad team, though. Texas Tech did still wind up winning the game, I think, by double digits, but they were struggling. That game was pretty close late in that game. So all of that kind of puts me on Texas Tech. I like taking the better team or laying the points with the better team when they kind of struggled in the first game. Now they have that game under their belt and out of the way. And Texas Tech, I mean, they have a lot of tournament pedigree, tournament experience. And as I mentioned, they have a lot of lethal shooters on this team. So they do have a good tournament profile in the fact that they play a pretty slow pace and they have really good shooting. And that's kind of what you want for a team that could potentially make a deep run if they're one of these like power conference teams, one of these good teams. I think Texas Tech has been under the radar, which is why I ran them to the Final Four in my bracket. I'm a little bit worried about this matchup with Drake, so hopefully Texas Tech does still get it done, but that is the way that I lean to Texas Tech. And, well, obviously I'm laying the points with Texas Tech there. For those reasons, even though Drake does have the continuity, I do think Texas Tech, I mean, these guys have played with each other for a decent amount of time as well, and they are the team that has faced the better competition here. So at some point, some of the cream does rise to the top. Texas Tech does have some historical like angles behind them where the team that is the top of the 3 seeds, which is Texas Tech this year, does have good history in the tournament, making good runs. So hopefully that continues. That's also in Wichita. So it is not that far away from either one of those schools, really. We go to Denver, Colorado here to elevation for BYU and Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a 1-point favorite, up to 1 with juice, 51% of tickets, 58% of the cash. So the money is coming in on Wisconsin. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that one, man. I have BYU winning this game in my bracket just because I thought that if it came to this, it was going to be a bit of a toss-up and that fewer people were going to be picking BYU. So to me, it seemed like this is one of those leverage spots in the bracket where a lot of people are going to be advancing Wisconsin and probably more than they should be based on what the odds are going to be. So I flipped it. I said, let's go BYU. And I think BYU does have a location advantage here, man. Like I said, I didn't think their matchup was very good against VCU, but the reason why I picked BYU in my bracket in that game was because this is in Denver, Colorado. So BYU, they have the elevation edge there. They're used to playing in elevation. These teams that they're playing against are not used to playing in elevation. So I think that might hurt Wisconsin a little bit. I mean, Wisconsin, they did get a game under their belt and get a win, though, so now they're a little bit more adjusted to the altitude up there. But BYU, they like to play fast and playing in elevation. Wisconsin could be the team that winds up getting tired out here, man, because BYU is certainly the team that's way more used to playing multiple games in a row in high elevation. And Wisconsin, they do rely on the 3. Both of these teams do hit a lot of 3s and rely on shooting. Wisconsin plays semi-fast as well, so I think this is probably going to be a fast-paced game because Wisconsin's not that slow-down Wisconsin team of old. So actually, it's kind of a better matchup in a way for BYU than VCU was, where Wisconsin's not going to try to slow them down, although Wisconsin does defend well. They do score efficiently. I don't know what else I was going to say about that, but the fatigue factor for playing multiple games in elevation might set in for Wisconsin more than it will for BYU, just not being used to being out of oxygen like that and playing multiple games in a row up there. And then I don't know who even gets the coaching edge there. Who gets the coaching edge in Drake, Texas Tech? I don't even really know. Probably Drake does because Texas Tech's coach has been kind of a dumbass at times. So I do worry about that a little bit, but we'll see what happens. And then we got Michigan, Texas A&M, this is a decent coaching matchup between Dusty May and Buzz Williams here. Texas A&M is up from 1-3, which I hope that happens because I do have Texas A&M winning this in my bracket. 51% of the tickets on Texas A&M, 60% of the cash going in on Michigan. So the money is coming back in on Michigan, even though it was the line was driven up from A&M, 1-point favorite to a 3-point favorite. Now the money's coming back in on Michigan. I think this could be an ugly, low-scoring game, man. I mean, Texas A&M, that's what they do. They don't shoot well. They play really good defense. They crash the boards. Michigan also kind of is a team that likes to play inside, even though they do take threes. They don't hit many of their threes. I don't know, very strange. But they do have a big man inside with Golden, and Michigan does have some size. Texas A&M, though, again, they're very athletic on the interior. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the entire country, I think, or at least one of them. So that's really their game. That helps them as far as the fact that they don't shoot well. They were able to beat Yale. It wasn't impressive. Michigan got through kind of an escape in the first round. A lot of times when a team escapes, especially when it was in a 5-12 matchup, that tends to refocus them a little bit. But that wasn't a game where Michigan was a large favorite. They were a very small favorite there. They had a big lead, and they almost blew it. So I think that's more of an indictment of Michigan than anything else, man. Michigan, I mean, they keep winning these close games. So, yeah, it does mean they're battle-tested. But now they are facing a battle-tested Texas A&M team. I mean, now they're facing an SEC team as opposed to a Big West team. So A&M has faced way more of a gauntlet of a schedule than UC San Diego has. So, slight lean to Texas A&M here. Not a strong lean at all. But that is the way that I look there, and that is also in Denver, Colorado. So I don't know which one of these teams is going to respond better to a second game in high elevation there. Maybe A&M a little bit more used to playing in elevation. I'm not even really sure, though, because they're kind of in the eastern part of Texas. So I don't know if either of these teams are really used to it. Yeah, probably neither of these teams are. So we'll see how these teams respond to that, and maybe that'll come down to which coach is able to handle that situation better. So we will see. I mean, that is an interesting one. Actually, both of these teams don't shoot particularly well. So, again, it could be a little bit of a low-scoring game as well. But I don't really love unders. Like I said, with UCLA and Tennessee, even though I like the under in that one, I don't love unders in the second game in the quick turnaround time because you can see tired defenses as well as tired offenses. And because the teams are used to the venue now, so whereas in that first game, they have to get used to the new venue, used to the sight lines. But now they're playing a second straight game there, so they're more used to it. Yeah, skip it, bop it, flip it. Yeah, that's right. All right, and then we do have these two NIT games. Dayton is on the road at Tennessee Chattanooga. They're playing a second straight road game in the NIT here. Dayton beat Florida Atlantic on the road. Unfortunately for me, I lost on Florida Atlantic. Chattanooga, I think, actually won a road game against, I forget, who did they beat? Middle Tennessee. Oh, yeah, it was Middle Tennessee. So the money is coming in Chattanooga. Dayton's down from 3-2, excuse me. Dayton is down from 3-2 here. 68% of tickets, 54% of the cash on Chattanooga, 68% of tickets on Dayton. So Dayton is public for some reason, but I would not really want to play Chattanooga here because in that first game, they went to 3 overtimes, and that was 4 days ago. So Chattanooga could be tiring out a little bit here. Dayton is the team that likes to play uglier. I think Chattanooga likes to play a little bit faster. Dayton likes to slow the game down and ugly it up. Chattanooga might be able to speed it up because they are at home. So a lot of times the home team does win the pacing edge, but coming off a 3 overtime game, even though the market read is all over Chattanooga, I want nothing to do with it. And then we got Bradley and George Mason. Bradley beat North Alabama, I think, at Bradley in the first game. So now they're going out on the road, having to go from the Midwest down to so Dayton has a little bit less travel. Chattanooga's just staying in Tennessee, so they have way less travel. George Mason, I think they won at home, so I think George Mason is actually just staying at home. They beat, who did they beat? Samford? Yeah, because I like Samford to cover in that game, and Samford didn't do it. George Mason's up from 5.5 to 6 here. 54% of tickets, 65% of the cash coming in at George Mason. I don't really disagree with that one. I think both of these teams have been overrated throughout the course of the year. Bradley having to travel from the Midwest all the way to D.C. or the D.C. area, Virginia, somewhere to play this game against George Mason. George Mason just staying at home. Both teams off of somewhat easy wins, but yeah, I lean to George Mason in that one. And they do have, they're kind of the more physical, kind of ugly style of team, which is kind of what you like, as well as they have the big slime there. I forget his name, the big man on George Mason there. He is a wide boy. That sounds bad, although maybe that's also true, but you know what I mean. We'll see what happens. Let's go over to NHL here. I got 2 NHL plays here. A lot of games today in the NHL, man. Vancouver is at the Rangers. This is going to be an interesting game. Vancouver coming off a loss to St. Louis, which I think was an overtime game. That wasn't a great spot for Vancouver because they just beaten Winnipeg. So I mentioned I like St. Louis in that game. St. Louis got the job done in overtime. Now Vancouver has to go out to the East Coast and play the New York Rangers. Both these teams kind of fighting to get into the playoffs right now. I think the Rangers are more in desperation mode right now as they're behind in the wild card race right now. They've lost 3 games in a row, and they've lost 7 of their last 9, which is not good. Coming off a close loss to Toronto. Staying at home, though, that's a tough game to be coming off of, but they are the team that probably has a little bit more rest and no travel. So Vancouver is having to travel and come off an overtime game. Rangers are in more desperation mode because they're still trying to get that playoff spot. And It would be a huge disappointment for them this season if they don't do that. So I do lean to the Rangers here. They're up from minus 143 to minus 148. 89% of tickets, only 83% of the cash, though. So they are very public and less of the money on them. If you do like them, you're looking at a team that might have a lot of pressure on them because they are kind of in desperation mode now. But in hockey, it's at least a little bit different because all you need them to do is win the game, and that is what their objective is. They're not trying to win by margin, but they are laying a bit of a price there in that game. But then again, the odds makers are telling you this Rangers team with a worse record than Vancouver's record is actually the better of the two teams. So we'll see how that goes. We got a bunch of games that don't really interest me a whole lot here. Calgary and the Islanders is kind of another playoff battle here, which is why I'll talk about it briefly. Calgary, I think, is definitely an overrated team. I think their record makes them look better than they actually are, but they're fighting to get into the playoffs, and so are the Islanders. Calgary coming off two big wins over the Rangers and the Devils, and now they're staying in the New York area, so not a whole lot of travel to go to the Islanders, but still, coming off two big wins like that, maybe they run out of gas a little bit. And the Islanders, of course, they're fighting to get in as well. They're playing pretty well right now. They've won 3 in a row, but they just beat Montreal. That was a big win for them against Montreal in overtime. Another team that's battling them for one of these wild card spots. And they got Columbus up next, which is another team trying to get a wild card, although Columbus is not looking great, especially after they lost yesterday. And I did play against them yesterday, even though they were going to be in desperation mode. The Islanders here are down from minus 140 to minus 129. 83% of tickets, only 61% of the cash. So the market read is actually all over Calgary, with the Islanders being public, the line reverse moving against them. So we will see what happens there, man. But the line is moving against the Islanders there. Jalen Haynes, yeah, that's his name, the big slime. Yeah, that guy, he is a big boy. Kind of the type of player that I like to watch, really, man, because it's just like how does this guy do what he can do? But also I like that physical style of play. Carolina and the Kings, one of the best games on the board here as far as both of these teams are quite good. Carolina out on the Pacific Coast, so they're having to deal with multiple straight road games here. They did have a bunch of days off before they went out to the West Coast, though, and they beat San Jose pretty easily, so their rest situation isn't really that bad. This is the big game on the West Coast, and Carolina's won a bunch of games in a row. I don't know if I'd really want to step in front of that train. The Kings are coming off a somewhat easy win over Chicago. They're returning back home, but they're only on the road for a couple of games, so it's one of those games where, even though it's a return home spot, I don't think they're going to be distracted by the return to family life because they haven't been away for that long, and it's against a really good Carolina team, so you've got to think they're going to be focused on Carolina. Maybe the game tomorrow against my Boston Bruins is going to be the game. It's the worst spot there for the Kings. Carolina is up from minus 109 to minus 111, though. Odds makers telling you they're the better team as they're the favorite on the road. 78% of tickets, 79% of the cash. Money is coming in at Carolina. I think both of these teams are going to be in the playoffs. So they don't really have to worry about that. So it kind of comes down to which team is the better team, which team is in the better spot. Maybe Carolina's still in the slightly better spot because the Kings are actually having to return to the West Coast. Carolina's actually already on the West Coast. So maybe a little bit of an edge to Carolina there. So I don't necessarily disagree with that. I don't want to play it, though. Florida just beat Columbus, oddly, 1-0. You expect more high-scoring games from Columbus. Florida's been on the road for a long time, man. It's going to be kind of a dangerous situation, I think, tomorrow when they return home from this road trip with no days off after this big game against Washington. This is a big game, man. A big game between the two of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, kind of battling for Eastern Conference supremacy right now. But Florida is finishing out a road trip. So they may be a little bit tired out, but then again, before that Columbus game, they did have 3 days off. So that is not that bad for them, and they're just staying on the East Coast during this road trip pretty much, so that's not that bad either. No time zone difference. They have had rest before that Columbus game, even though that Columbus game went into overtime. Florida, not exactly on the worst rest spot here. Excuse me, man. Washington coming off a win over Philadelphia that was not very impressive. Really only 2 teams, I would say, are completely out of the playoff hunt right now in the East, and it's Philadelphia and Buffalo. Philadelphia played pretty tough in that game. Washington got the win. They're staying at home, so maybe they have a little bit of a better situation just because they're staying at home. They did play one extra game in that time span where Florida was off. I don't know that that'll really matter that much. Florida's up from -110 to -116 as a road favorite. So the odds makers are telling you, even though Washington has the better record, Florida is actually still the better of these two teams as they're the road favorite. So it's kind of a misleading number. So you might want to look that way to Florida, and the line has moved up on them. But Washington, 70% of tickets, 88% of the cash coming in on them. In Florida, getting towards the end of the road trip, again, like I said, could be getting a little bit tired out, even though they did have that extra rest in there. So I don't know which way I would want to go in this game, man, to be honest. Maybe the slight lean would be to Washington just because of how it sets up, but we will see. Next up is going to be one of my two plays. I'm going right back to the well again, man. I think this is the team that I've played more than anybody else. I just keep finding them in decent situations, man. Utah Hockey Club is going to be the play. I'm going to fade Tampa Bay here. I know it doesn't look good, but the market read looks all over Utah here. Tampa down from -125 to -110 now, so it's dropping all the way to Utah, potentially becoming a favorite here. You might see a favorite flip here, so I would try to get Utah as an underdog here, man. Tampa, 59% of the tickets, 85% of the cash coming in on Utah, so some reverse line movement on a public road Tampa Bay side, but the cash coming in on Utah. I like Utah here. Tampa Bay, I think this is a bad spot for them, man, even though they're on a roll right now. Utah needs this game more. Tampa's won 3 games in a row. 2 easy wins over Boston and Philadelphia. Those teams suck. But then they beat Dallas on the road in a shootout 2 days ago. Huge win for them. And now they have to go up into elevation to play Utah. And then right after this tomorrow, they have to go play Vegas. Vegas is a much bigger game, man. And if you're Tampa, although Toronto as well, both of Tampa and Toronto, but we're talking about Tampa here. Tampa is in the playoffs, man. I mean, they're going to be in the playoffs, so it's really just a matter of seeding. So Utah is going to be the team that needs this game way more. And this is sandwiched in between 2 bigger games for Tampa, coming off that huge win that went all the way to a shootout, going into elevation with Vegas up next with no days off after this. Again, this is a bad spot for Tampa. It's a sandwich spot. They don't really need the win playing against a Western Conference team and Tampa already being secure in their playoff spot, whereas Utah, they got to win, man, because they're battling to try to get into the playoffs right now. It looks like you'll probably get Ingram and then him, and Vejmelka's played like 1 million games in a row, so I have no idea what they're doing here. Why has he played so many games in a row? I don't know, but Utah, they actually just returned home from a road trip. It wasn't a long road trip. Did take them to the Pacific Northwest, though, but they returned home and they actually won against Buffalo, even though Buffalo you'd think would be a team they wouldn't even really pay attention to. They still beat Buffalo, so that shows me something, and now they have a game under their belt back at home. They've already gotten whatever home, like distractions, I think, might come into play out of the way here. And they got a good team coming into their place that I think they're going to be focused on in Tampa Bay. And you got to be focused, again, like I said, because you're trying to make the playoffs here if you're Utah. And Utah, I think they're only a couple of points out of a wild card spot right now. And they're at home as an underdog, and Tampa's in a terrible spot. It lines up nicely, man. I like Utah. I think that's the best play on the board for Hockey Day. Unfortunately, yesterday I said in college basketball, I thought Colorado State might be my weakest of those plays, and that was the only winner. I apologize. I hate it. Colorado at Montreal. This is a good one as well. Colorado's coming off smashing Ottawa. I mean, that was a good win for Colorado. Ottawa trying to get one of the wild card spots, and they're actually looking pretty good to get one right now. Colorado having to play Montreal on that, but they're playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities, even though they're all up in that Eastern Canada corridor there, but still coming off a big win over Ottawa and a close game against Toronto the game before that. 3 games of 4 days. I don't think it's the greatest spot for Colorado. Montreal, they're going to be in a bit of a desperation mode here as well, man, and they're probably a home underdog here. Coming off an overtime game against the Islanders, but they did a couple of days off before that. They're coming back home, but only from a 1-game road trip. Don't think that matters that much. They did just beat Ottawa and Florida when they were back at home as well. They've won, actually, their last 4 home games, including games against Florida and Ottawa, like I said. So, and then San Jose, who cares? Overtime. They beat San Jose, and then the other one was against some other bad team. Where was it? I saw it in here. I forget. Buffalo. Actually, they've won 5, actually. They beat Carolina in there as well. So they've won their last 5 home games they've won. and 3 of them against good teams. So Montreal has been better at home. They've been pretty good at home recently, and they need it because they're fighting for playoffs, man, fighting to get into the playoffs. Colorado is not. Colorado, yeah, they're going to be fighting for seeding and such, but the game matters more to Montreal. I like Montreal in this game. Colorado up for minus 180 to minus 185. So they're a huge road favorite here. Public as well, 60% of tickets, but 60% of the cash on Montreal. I agree with Montreal in this game. Like I said, I would maybe even fire on the money line in that one. I mean, you could split it, puck line, money line, but like half each. But I think you just go balls to the wall on that and take Montreal at the big underdog price and hope that they get it. I haven't played that one, but I do like Montreal. I actually think that's one of the stronger angles probably because they've been really good at home, so I think that kind of puts them over the top. Their recent home record being very good. Ottawa's coming off 2 really ugly losses after they went on this nice win streak to get themselves in a nice wild card position, but they still got to fight for it, man. It's not over yet. They've lost 2 games in a row to Montreal and Colorado and lost badly. Giving up 11 goals in those 2 games. That's not good. Now they're going out on the road, and both of them were Allmark in net, too, so kind of surprising. They're going out on the road to face the Devils. The Devils probably are already in the playoffs, though they've been slipping a bit recently. They have not been playing good hockey for a while now, and they're coming out of an ugly loss to Calgary as well, so they might actually be focused as well as they're staying at home coming off a bad loss. So Ottawa needs this game more. I would still probably lean that way, but both teams I think are going to show up for this one. New Jersey down from minus 130 to minus 112. 64% of tickets, 79% of the cash coming in on Ottawa. So the money is coming in on Ottawa. I think it does make sense as they are going to be the team in more desperation mode, but I don't want to play it. And then we got Detroit at Vegas. Vegas is just a huge favorite, though. I mean, Detroit kind of still in the running to try to get a wild card, but they're starting to fall apart. They're one of the last teams left, like in the East, that's still kind of alive there with them and the Bruins. Unfortunately, Detroit coming off a pretty ugly loss to Washington. They're in multiple days off. They're traveling all the way from Washington to Vegas, though. But it will be like they're starting a new road trip, though. So maybe that will help them a little bit focus on this game. I mean, they will be focused, whereas Vegas probably already pretty secure in a playoff spot. They don't have to worry as much. They're coming off just crushing Boston 5-1 in a return home spot. It wasn't even a good spot for Vegas because, as I say, when you return home, it tends to be a distracted spot. They did have a lot of rest there, though. They do have Tampa up next. They did lose to Detroit the game before Boston, though, on the road, so it is a little bit of revenge for Vegas and a second home game in a row. So Vegas might not actually be in that bad of a spot here. I might actually not overlook Detroit. Vegas down from minus 220 to minus 208, though, but 83% of tickets, 95% of the cash coming in on them. So the line is moving against Vegas, but they do have the cash percentage on them. And then finally, my other play is the Seattle Kraken, plus 136. I'm going right back to the well, playing Utah again, playing on Utah, and fading Edmonton again. Edmonton down from minus 170 to minus 158, so the line has moved against Edmonton. 75% of tickets, 89% of the cash. The cash percentage coming in on Edmonton, which I don't love, but the line is moving against them, which I think is reverse line movement because you're going to see Edmonton be public in this game. Nobody wants Seattle here. I mean, Seattle, they're just playing out the stretch. They're not going to make the playoffs, but one of the games that they will be focused on is going to be a game against the Edmonton Oilers, man, the team that won the Western Conference last year. And Seattle's coming off an ugly shutout loss to Minnesota, but that was on a back-to-back. Now they have 2 days off, not huge travel from Minnesota up to Edmonton. So I think they are going to be focused in this game, man. It looks like it will be a focus spot, whereas for Edmonton, I don't think it will be. Edmonton's coming off a huge game over against Winnipeg, and I mentioned I liked Winnipeg in that game, and Winnipeg got the job done in overtime. That was a huge game for both teams. Now, Edmonton's coming off of that after crushing Utah the game before that and going on a nice run. Edmonton kind of riding the ship there. But Edmonton, they're definitely already going to be in the playoffs, man. So you don't have to worry about that. Coming off that huge game against Winnipeg with 1 day off, and they got Dallas up next, man. Even though it's not for 3 or 4 days, but still, I think it still qualifies as a sandwich spot. They're coming off that game that could tire them out a little bit. I think it's more of a focus spot for Seattle, and I think they have a little bit more rest there. So we'll grab the money line with Seattle there. Let's go over to the NBA, and then I'll get out of here. NBA, not a bunch of games here, but the Pacers, I actually leaned to the Pacers here again, even though I know they didn't cover in the previous game. This is a zigzag spot, really, with the Pacers against the Nets. And you might be saying, well, the Pacers won, so wouldn't the zigzag be on the side of the Nets? I don't think so, because the Pacers played so badly in that game as a big favorite. Got taken into overtime, almost lost the game. They were losing the whole game. So I actually think the Pacers will show up more focused in this one. But instead of being an 8.5-point favorite, they're up from 9 to 10 here. 94% of tickets, 99% of the cash on this one. But I will say, I think the line has moved like that because I think Halliburton is finally returning in this game. So I don't want to lay the points of the Pacers, even though I think they will be more focused this time after almost losing to the Nets in the prior game. Halliburton coming back could kind of throw a wrench in because he is probably their best player. So they have to kind of readjust and get that chemistry back again. And it affects the line a bit, and maybe the zigzag is affecting the line a bit. So you're getting a little bit less line value. So I don't want to deal with it. I will not do it. The Warriors are playing at Atlanta. The Warriors are coming off a game where they almost lost to Toronto. So you might say, well, that should focus the Warriors, right? Because that was a bad performance as a huge favorite, 14.5-point favorite. They almost lost to Toronto. Yeah, but Atlanta's kind of in desperation mode right now, man, trying to play to make sure they get like one of the play-in games or whatever. They're coming off an easy win over Charlotte. They are returning home, but only from 2 games in Brooklyn and Charlotte, so not a bad return home spot there. They did just lose Capella for the season, so that makes it an injured player theory spot too for Atlanta. So I actually think there are some positives for Atlanta. I actually probably lean to Atlanta in this game. I think they need the game more, even though the Warriors are coming off a game where they almost lost to a bad team. They're a 2.5-point road favorite, the Warriors are. Hawks, 81% of the cash on them. I don't understand that at all. I doubt that the public is actually on the Hawks here against the Warriors. Highly doubt it. 91% of the tickets, or 91% of the cash on the Hawks. So we'll see what happens in that game, too. I don't know what's happening here. Knicks, you got to pay attention to when Brunson is coming back. I will just point that out. They're a huge double-digit favorite against Washington. I don't want to talk about that game. What I will talk about, though, is the one game that I'm on, and that's the Sacramento Kings, -2. In college basketball, I'd probably lay the money line on this, but in NBA, I think the money line, you get a little bit of a worse price on the money line. So I think you still want to lay the spread in the NBA, and this is simple. Milwaukee just had a couple of big games playing Oklahoma City, Golden State, and LA. Now they're facing a third straight road game, and they beat the Lakers. Not only did they beat them, but they pummeled them by almost 30 points. But remember, the Lakers had no Luka and no LeBron in that game. So I will just point that out, that was a very short-handed Laker team. That was why Milwaukee was a road favorite. But still, it's the LA Lakers, and you went into their place and you beat them and embarrassed them by almost 30 points. I don't think you're going to be that focused on this Sacramento team that's been kind of struggling, man. And Milwaukee, yeah, I know they're playing for seeding, and they're trying to make sure that they get one of those top 4 seeds so they get a home series. There's still a lot of time left. Well, not that much time left, but still, that's, I think, less of a motivator than what Sacramento is going to have here. And coming off that big win over LA, I do think it is a letdown spot. And they do have Phoenix with Kevin Durant, Denver, and then the Knicks all up in a row after this. I think they might consider all of those to be bigger games in this game against Sacramento, who's sitting at 500 right now. At Sacramento, they need this game more, man, because they're in the play-in games right now, and they want to make sure that they at least get into one of these play-in games, man. They do not want to miss on the playoffs, and they're coming off a bad loss to Chicago by double digits at home. But I think you can explain that loss because Sacramento had just beaten Memphis and Cleveland in the prior 2 games. So I think that was a major letdown spot. Not only that, but they were playing in a back-to-back, playing with no rest after beating Cleveland, and they'd beaten Memphis 2 days before that. So that was a 3rd game in 4 days. That was a really bad spot for Sacramento. They had a bad game as a 7.5-point favorite. They lost to the Bulls. So now I think you're going to see Sacramento be in a bounce-back spot here. So Milwaukee is in a bad spot. I think a letdown spot. Sacramento needs the game a little bit more because they're fighting to try to still get into the playoffs at all. And they're coming off just an ugly loss, an embarrassing loss at home. So I think this is a nice bounce-back spot for the Kings. I like the Kings. They're up from 1 to 2 with juice now, so the line is moving on them. 86% of tickets, 92% of the cash coming in on the Kings. So the money is coming in on the Kings. I would, lay the points with the Kings. If it's 2.5, I think I would still probably be fine with it. I'm going to do it. I like the spot. Sacramento Kings is where we're going there. I don't know what Milwaukee's personnel will be in this game. And then you got to look, Sabonis is still out for Sacramento. I mean, he's been out for a while. He's one of their best players, but they're used to him being out, so we'll see what happens. And it looks like Portis is still out for Milwaukee. I mean, they're used to playing without him, too. Lillard is out for Milwaukee, and it looks like Giannis is probably going to play because I think this line would be a little bit crazier if Giannis wasn't going to play. Lillard is going to miss the game, though, and return in the next game, so Milwaukee is without one of their better players, at least, although I know that's factored into the line. Basketball, just way too much personnel to look at, but even with all that, the NBA has still been my best handicapping sport, so the situation's still panned out. And then Chicago is at the Lakers. Lakers up from 9 to 9.5, 92% of tickets, 97% of the cash. So the Lakers are crazy public, but I don't know that the public is actually wrong in this one. I mean, the Lakers are coming off that embarrassing loss to Milwaukee, so you got to think the Lakers are going to play harder in this one, where Chicago is coming off the upset of Sacramento. And I know, you're probably going to be focused when you're playing the Lakers. It's just that I think Chicago might run out of steam a little bit. And then you got to see who's playing for the Lakers is really the question, because their injury report is like a mile long. LeBron will not be back yet. Luka, I assume, just had a rest game in the last game, so I think he will probably play in this game. The Bulls are without Lonzo Ball still. So he's not going to play in this game. For the Lakers, it looks like Hachimura might come back in this game. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. So we will see. And then Austin Reeves is also listed as a game-time decision. Probably expect that he's going to play. But again, slightly into the Lakers in that one just because they're off in a really embarrassing loss. Bulls off a nice win. Still should be focused here, but the Lakers are the better team. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for me, man. So that's a slate of five games on the card here. Kings with juice. It's King Juice, baby. It's what do Kings drink? I don't know. They drink wine, nectar. What do they drink? I don't know. So my plays once again today are laying a couple of favorites that I think are. I think the underdogs are getting a little bit too overhyped in these games. Auburn -9 in the NCAA tournament there. Texas Tech -7. Hockey, Utah +105. Seattle +136. And NBA, Sacramento -2. That's going to do it for me. Tower Gang Toad on Twitter, patreon.com/Tower Gang. Oh, I actually have Comedy Central on. I apologize. My ambiance is wrong. I'm supposed to have sports on. Instead, Michael Scott is on my TV, but that's all right. We still like The Office, I think, right? Even though it's probably an overhyped show, but it was good back in the day. That's going to do it, man. Patreon.com/Tower Gang for the most offensive podcast out there. We're doing some things, man. We're moving. We're shaking. So let's do it. Let's get some wins today. The Kings drink scissor. Yeah. The Kings do have a lot of black players, so that is probably what they, especially with Sabonis out there, even less white. So that's probably the case. Yeah, The Office. I actually like the British one as well, which a lot of people seem to not like it, but I like Ricky Gervais. I mean, that's where it all started, man. But I do like the American one. I actually like the finale, too. I know some people disagree with that. They brought Michael Scott back. It was kind of an emotional moment with Michael coming back in the finale. I kind of liked that moment there, although with Michael not being in the show, it was not as good. But that finale I thought was good. And obviously all of the show with Michael in it was definitely good. All right, that's going to do it for me. Have a good day, everybody. Let's enjoy the madness. Hopefully my bracket stays intact to some extent. It's a rare situation, though. I lost no Sweet 16 teams in the first round, so there is at least that, but I'm expecting to lose a bunch of them this round, so I'm going to, probably jump off a ledge or something. People just didn't like that it ended. Yeah, I mean, I guess, because, everything good has to come to an end, man. Michael wasn't in it anymore. Steve Carell wasn't in it anymore. Steve Carell, by the way, I've met him because he's from Massachusetts, and he is in Massachusetts fairly often. I don't want to dox myself too much, but he does have a home and a business very close to where my parents live. So I've met him a couple of times. One time I met him way back in the day just because I was working at a CVS in the area, and he just happened to come in shopping. And even though The Office was a thing, it was probably 2006, 2007, nobody even recognized him or knew that it was him. I'm like, that's Steve Carell. And I said hi to him, but he seemed like he didn't want to really talk, didn't want to acknowledge that that's who he was. Yeah, he lives right near the FBI office, man. And then I've met him again in the same town, in the same area. And And yeah, I mean, that's about it. I mean, very briefly met him a couple of times. That's about it. That's going to do it for me for now, man. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. All Tower Gang all the time. Tower Gang Toad on Twitter. Peace.